Welcome back to the SwimSwam Breakdown. As always, I'm your host, Coleman Hodges, joining you from Brooklyn, New York, joined by my fellow New Yorker, Sophie Kaufman, and the dirty double himself, Brendan Burns from outside of Philadelphia. We're all on the East Coast. I kind of like that. That's pretty cool. Brendan, how have you been affected by the Eagles winning the Super Bowl at all?
It's made my life materially better. This is a pretty cranky city most of the time, but everyone's been in a great mood for a week. We'll see how long it lasts, but we're gonna take what we can get.
Love that. Yeah, I feel like Braden Keith, our editor in chief, has been posting videos, and uh, he also lives in Philadelphia, so it seems like he's been in a good mood. Just talked to Greg Meehan, who had some news to drop, and people weren't happy with him, but he's certainly happy because he is also a lifelong Eagles fan. So good for the Eagles, good for Philadelphia. We're not here to talk about that today, so that's enough of that. We are here today to break down both the men's and women's Big Ten championships as well as the Big 12 championships. With the conference realignment, all of these conferences look at least a little bit different, if not a lot of bit different from last year. We're going to start with the women's Big Ten championships because that is what comes first. So right off the bat, we have USC and UCLA being added to this conference, which is weird and funny, and that's a different topic for a past podcast. But it will be interesting to see them added to the conference. I think they're going to add some great competition to the conference. And one event that I thought was bizarre looking at rankings, I'm not sure if this is correct or not, but the women's 200 fly, the last individual event of the meet in the pool, Michigan has the top 5 seeds right now. They're all at 153 plus. Top seed is Matea Sokolau, 153.08. Fifth is Catherine Shanley at 153.94. But Michigan has some serious depth in this women's 200 fly. Whether all 5 of these women are going to swim this event or not, I guess we'll see. But just to see that really took me aback a little bit. And so I'm excited personally just for this individual event because I want to see how Michigan can throw down in this. The next fastest is Wisconsin's Mackenzie McConaughey at 155.2. So, I mean, even if you can get 3 in the top 6 at a conference championships or 3 in the top 8, it seems like you're doing pretty well in an event. So we're going to see how well the Wolverines go in this women's 200 fly. But let's open it up to the floor. Brendan, I'm going to toss this to you first. Women's Big Ten event you are looking forward to at this championships?
I think clear cut, the 200 freestyle. I think it has the most star power. I think the depth will be really interesting. The big three at the top that will be battling for the 200 free crown: Anna Peplowski, Minna Abraham, and Stephanie Balducini. Last year was a great race between Balducini and Peplowski. Now we get another A final caliber swimmer in Minna Abraham from USC. Really looking forward to seeing what that podium looks like.
Those top 3 already have A cuts, NCAA A cuts in the event. They are, as you said, far and away the top 3 in that event. Sophie, any thoughts on this women's 200 free, which, as Brendan said, is going to be a barn burner and really, I think, one of the best events leading into NCAAs?
Yeah, I don't know if it's quite the race of the meet, but it is certainly a really exciting one. And we get to see these 3 kind of go against each other twice. You know, we have the 200 free first, and then we should see them again in the 100 free later. So it's kind of just exciting to know that, we'll see them in this, which I think is all 3 of their, more of a focus for them than the 100 free. And then we'll get to see them kind of go and sprint for it on the final day of the meet, which should be exciting too, to kind of let that rivalry build. This is going to be a really close meet. it already was before USC and UCLA showed up. And even though they aren't necessarily the two teams that are going to be like vying for the team title, they throw a really interesting wrench in how this scores out between, you know, Ohio State, Indiana, and Michigan. So it should be really exciting to watch all the way through to the last relay.
Sophie, what do you think the event of the meet will be?
That's a really good question. I kind of think it feels like cheating to say the 400 free relay because I think this is going to come down to the last relay. But I do think that both the 200 free relay and the 400 free relay have the potential to be really exciting. The women's 50, 100, and 200 freestyle are all events that I had kind of flagged. And so to get to see the top teams take each other on in the relays where the depth becomes really important, not just who their top swimmer is something that I'm really looking forward to.
Worth noting that last year at these championships, the meet did come down to the 400 free relay. And correct me if I'm wrong, Indiana women ended up winning by half a point, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Half a point, second in the race. I was there in person watching at Purdue last year. The most amazing thing I've ever seen in a swim meet, bar none.
It's incredible. I mean, I remember just watching the video and being like, what? I mean, it's as close as you can get at a swim meet, right? Half a point. Yeah, wild. So as Sophie noted, those relays are going to be really important for that team score. And this is such a close meet once again that on paper seems like there's a good chance it could come down to that final relay. It's interesting, Sophie, you mentioned those three, Balducini, Anna Poplawski, and Mina Abraham all should do the 100 free on the last day, which all three Olympians for their countries, by the way. Mina Abraham for Hungary, Balducini for Brazil, and Poplawski for the USA. So again, you've got some serious star power. But as I was looking through events, the 200 back stood out to me as one where we have another Olympian in Wisconsin's Phoebe Bacon. At the top seed, we've got Miranda Grana, who's been a real jolt for the backstroke and butterfly for Indiana. Maggie Wanizek is third at 150. So all three of those women have been under 151 this season. But then Anna Poplawski has been 151-1 in that 200 back. She's fourth in the conference right now. Not what will she swim, but what do you as swim analysts think Poplawski should swim on that final day, 100 free or 200 back, especially considering she will most likely be a big part of that 400 free relay at the end. Thoughts, Sophie?
Yikes. I don't know. I think that it's really interesting to think about. You know, we've seen Poplawski take on some, I guess you would call untraditional events for her this season. You know, she's not just racing the 100, 200, and 500 free over and over. So to see her up there in the 200 back, you know, so high up in the rankings in the conference is really encouraging. I guess it kind of comes down to what she wants out of this meet. You know, I think she's used up her eligibility now. So this will be her last Big Ten championships. You know, and whether this is another situation, I know we were talking in the ACC SEC preview about how at conference, you know, you can over enter and then scratch your events. And that's where we might see this come into play. You know, it wouldn't surprise me to see her on the psych sheet for both of these events. And then to kind of see how the meet is going and adjust accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Brendan, thoughts on 2 back versus 100 free for the Hoosier Poplawski?
Yeah, I mean, this was a big debate last year when the team race was much closer. We were kind of on the underdog side of things. Anna, just an incredibly versatile swimmer. You know, what a blessing it is to have someone where she's a real threat to win 2 events on the final day of a conference championship meet. That's a very rare caliber of swimmer to have on your team. Personally, I think with the transfer of Miranda this year, she's been lights out. She's been swimming well, literally since her first meet as a Hoosier. I think that backstroke group is really deep without Anna. Not that they don't need her there, not that they wouldn't like to have her there, but I think her strength and her her value to the team would be a little bit better served in the 100 free, but you can't go wrong either way.
Yeah, looking at the looking at the 100 free rankings in the Big Ten Conference, Balducini is number 1. Poplawski's currently at number 2. You've got 4 women who have been under 48 seconds this season. Kristen Pagel, also for Indiana, sits at 6th. So if Pagel and Poplawski both decide to swim it, could potentially 2 in the A final, which has, it's a pretty good look. Michigan women have 3 in the top 5 right now, which, again, excited to see. Matt Bow has been head coach at Michigan now for 2 or 3 seasons, and I'm excited to see how this program has developed a little. It seems like the Michigan women have kind of slowly been building some momentum, and looking at these rankings right now, it seems like they've had a solid season and are in line to have a good showing at these conference championships. We've done relay. We've talked relays. We've talked some mid-distance freestyles. One other event I am excited. I know we've mentioned the 100 and the 200, but let's just keep it rolling there. The 500 free, I think, will be a really great way to kick off the meet. Once again, top 2 seeds go to Michigan. Hannah Bellard and Rebecca Diaconesco. Don't know if I said that right. 434 and 435 at the Georgia Tech Invitational. So kind of, again, quietly 2 A times for both of them. Then you've got Poplawski sitting at 3rd. Wisconsin's distance crew is no joke. Abby Carlson is at 4th. You've got 6 women who have been under 440. And then you've got Claire Tuggle for USC at 7th. So I think between Tuggle and Justina Kozan, I think USC could make some noise in this. Minnesota have the 9th and 10th seeds. So I think once you get to the distance, or at least the higher side of mid distance, you've got a few more schools who are involved and could have a chance to throw some points on the board in a pretty big way. So I'm excited that this is the first event of this meet, just because I don't think there's a clear-cut favorite at this point, and we could see some really good races in that one. So any other races or notes about the Women's Big Ten Championships for either of you before we move to the men's meet?
I'll just say, I agree with what's been said about the Michigan women so far. I was looking at the 200 fly times, and I think that if I'm remembering correctly, those are all from the beginning of the season. The 153s were a time trial that were titled 200 butterfly, but I think they were actually freestyle, if I'm remembering the way that this went down. So, but nevertheless, they're still they're still a sneakily very deep team. And they got back Letitia Sim on the breaststroke, and breaststroke was really their one big glaring weakness last season. So it wouldn't surprise me to see them kind of get involved in the team title fight in a much more serious way than they have been for the last couple seasons.
That makes way more sense. So thank you for clearing that up, Sophie. But yeah, SwimSwam just published the Women's Big Ten Fan Guide. We have Indiana winning the meet, repeating as champions, Michigan at 2nd, and Ohio State at 3rd, which would be a bit of a surprise to me, just because the Ohio State women have been so dominant in this conference and also put such a big emphasis on this meet for the better part of the last decade. Again, they were the 4-time champions, nearly 5-time champions last year. Again, Indiana got them by half a point, but to see them go to 3rd now this year, again, would be a bit of a surprise for me, but I do think it's going to be a great battle at the top for that team title. So that is your Women's Big Ten Championships. Let's move to the men's meet. Brendan, you are a veteran of this specific meet. I'm going to throw this one over to you first. What event or events are you most looking forward to for this men's Big Ten Championships, which will be 1 week after the women's iteration?
So this is SwimSwam. We're talking about swimming, but the Big Ten is the diving conference, and I'm looking forward to diving. I mean, I'm looking forward to watching my former teammates at IU. I'm looking forward to the other Purdue, Michigan, Ohio State, the premier diving programs in the country really throw down and get ready for zones and get ready for NCAs. It's a boring answer. I think my swimming answer, I'd probably look at the 200 IM. I think I'm really excited to see Gal, the defending champion from Michigan, Gal Groomy, go up against Owen McDonald, who was an A finalist last year at NCAA's. I think they're going to have a really epic battle on that first night of the meet, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, this was my first year, or sorry, this year I filmed an IU diving practice when I was at Indiana. It was very interesting to watch, observe. They have a great facility there. But as I was talking to Drew, the head coach, he was telling me about the Big Ten history as a conference of diving. And it was really fascinating. You know, they were the first conference to really invest in facilities and coaches, not only on the swimming side, but on the diving side. And you can really see that in their results historically. Like you said, Big Ten diving, no joke. My brother swam at Purdue, and he was the same year as David Bodaya. So every year we would go to Big Ten championships to watch my brother, and like he would steal the show. But David Bodaya would, not my brother. And, you know, like everyone would like laser in focus when he got on the boards because it was kind of magical to watch. And so I like this answer just because Big Ten diving hits different. I really think it does. And when you have numerous Olympians competing, when you have the defending NCAA champions competing, it makes it a really fun event to watch. Sophie, highlight events for you at this men's Big Ten championships.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on what you're looking for out of this meet. If you want to watch a preview of what could be a really impactful event for an NCAA contending team, you can't do much better than the 100 breaststroke, where Indiana has the top 5 seeds in the conference this season, and it's a mix, of their
that's
returning
that's no error.
I think that is actually real. And it's a good mix in terms of like the returning talent that they already had in a really strong breaststroke group and the people that they've added to make their breaststroke group, the best in the country. But if you're looking for, I want to watch a close race that's maybe a more balanced race in terms of the teams that are at the Big Ten championships. The 100 fly is one that should be really exciting as well. We've been talking about this event keeps coming up as we preview the conference championships, and it's just, a marker of how tight this race is going to be in March. There are 8 men who are sub 46, 9 who are within a second of each other. You've got 2 Indiana swimmers right at the top, but you've also got Minnesota freshman Jacob Johnson, who's third with a 45.2. He's a better 2 flyer, but this should still be a really exciting event to watch him swim. And so I think that one, in terms of what could be a really close race, is one that I'm looking forward to.
Question about both these events. Do you think Indiana's Finn Brooks, who is seeded top 3, I think, in both, do you think he swims both, or do you think he should, Sophie?
Well, I'm going to turn that to Brendan. What would be his third day event if he does the double on day 2?
I'm guessing the 50 free.
50 free, yes, for Finn, Buster, Brown, Brooks. 50 free, he's exceedingly talented in the 100 fly and the 100 breaststroke. That 100 freestyle of his, maybe he's developed it this year. I'd love to see him give it a go, but I think he's going to do what he did last year, where he doubled on the middle day, did both the 100 fly, 100 breaststroke. I'm not totally sure on that, but if I had to guess, those are really kind of his 3 true best events. His 100 free is a little bit of a reach, but he could podium in all 3, and I would not be surprised. He's kind of just that talented. So
it makes sense, especially because the 100 free on the last day just seems like a tough tough event, an individual event. And if you've been focusing on power and speed and not necessarily endurance, which in my 2 days at Indiana, that's what I saw Finn Brooks doing. Then I would think you kind of want to front load your schedule of in terms of racing because that's when you're going to get the most out of your strengths. The 100 fly, 100 breast double, as you said, Brendan, he did it last year. It's not ideal, I'm assuming, but it seems doable for him. Especially if the goal is to score points, I don't think NCAA qualification is an issue for him. Then, I think that makes the most sense because 100 free on the last day, you've got a lot of races under your belt at that point. You're tired, and that last 25 can be a little more painful than I'm guessing 100 fly or 100 breast.
It's
So
tough, and with him, I mean, you've seen him in person. He's a freak of nature. Even him in the weight room, I've seen few like him in the weight room
mhm.
from a swimming standpoint. When he's doing pullouts, he's getting 17, 18 yards off the wall because he's just that big and strong. So, the 100 breaststroke, he has a very good stroke. He's very talented, but it's really more about him showing off his strength more than his technique.
So then, staying with the 100 breast, who do we like here as a top contender? If you want to throw in a
In the
non-Hoosier,
wheel.
yeah, you're welcome to. But you've again the top 5 seeds. Jason Yep is fifth at 51.5. Then you've got Corbo 51.4, Matheny 51.1, Brooks 51.1, and Brian Benzing, who does have the fastest best time from last NCAA's. I believe that beats out Corbo's best time at 51.0 this season. And like Sophie said, you've got some new, some old in terms of Indiana Hoosiers. But Brendan, I'll toss this one to you first. Who do you like as the favorite in this 100 breast?
This is picking straws here. I really believe one of those 5 guys could win it. They train with each other every day. They know each other's idiosyncrasies. Like it's so tough to pick. I don't know. I really liked how Casper, Brian. I really like how all of them have been training this year. I'll go with Casper or Brian in a nail biter. All these guys are going to be separated by half a second or less.
Yeah. Sophie, same question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna come down to the touch too, and it's just kind of like a take your pick. If you wanna spin a wheel. I would favor Brian at this point. It's interesting to think about, he's already the top swimmer in the conference this season, but also it'll be interesting to see how he translates, because he was a mid-major swimmer, right? He spent 4 years of his career at Towson, where conference championships are much more of a focus than the NCAA meet. So kind of accepting last year, we'd see him drop some really fast times and relay splits at the CAA championships. And then, he'd make NCAAs, but he'd add a little bit of time. And that's very different than what he's going through the training he's doing this season, where, clearly NCAAs is the big goal at the end of the season. So I'm really interested to see how that kind of change in mentality translates to what kind of times he's going to put up at conference this season. I think I'd still pick him to win.
Yeah, on that same note, I think I'm going to go with Casper, but I am curious to see how he, who has competed in the Big 12, which is not much of a high pressure championships, or what was not for the Texas men, I'm guessing, how he adjusts to now competing in a Big 10 championships, which definitely more pressure. I think there's a little more energy, more excitement at that meet. But he's also been out of the NCAA for 3 semesters. He's been training in the Netherlands. He's gotten international experience. He medaled at the Olympics, and that is mostly why I'm picking him. Is because I think he's been outside of college swimming a little bit, and I think he's going to take that experience and benefit from it. And I also think he is kind of that perfect blend of 100 and 200 breaststroker, whereas I think those other guys, lean a little bit more to one side or the other. I think Jason and Josh Matheny are both little bit more 200 guys, at least in short course. You have, and then Benzing and Finn Brooks, I think lean a little bit more to the 100 side. So I like Casper's chances, but like you guys said, I think this is going to be a really fun race to watch. Certainly a fun race for Indiana, I believe. Any final races or comments, thoughts, concerns for the men's Big Ten championships before we move to the Big 12? Let's do it. All right. And our final conference championships preview for the day, which is a combined meet, will be the Big 12 championships. So totally new look for the Big 12 this year. Not only do we have a few of the returning teams, such as TCU and West Virginia, we've got Houston, we've got BYU, and then of course we've got Cincinnati, and this is not an exhaustive list, but then also we have the conference realignment stragglers in Arizona State and Arizona. So you've got quite a few schools now who before were many of which were mid-major schools, now are in the Big Power 4 conference of the Big 12. I think both on the men's and women's side, ASU is looking like a strong favorite. The men, of course, are coming off of not only a Pac-12 championship last year, but an NCAA championship. The ASU women have just seemed to be trending up and up and up this year. So in terms of depth, I'm not sure this is going to be the deepest meet, but I think there will be some really fun races to watch. I think it's going to be fun to see how ASU reacts to this meet, notably just because they've been swimming really fast all season. Sophie, I'll throw this one to you first. Race or races you're looking forward to watch at this Big 12 championships?
Do you want to do men's or women first?
Your call. Whichever.
All right, great. Well, I think it's really interesting with ASU and Arizona because, like, yes, this is a new conference, but they're having these championships at Federal Way, which is where they had Pac-12s. So this is going to feel like a really familiar thing. But for the ASU women, I think it's really interesting because, like, they have been trending up and up this season, and now they're not in a conference with Cal and Stanford. So I'm really curious to see what, they're projected to win this meet, like what that is going to kind of do for their confidence heading into what could be their best NCAAs. And so one race that I'm really excited to watch them swim is the 200 medley relay. They've broken their school record 4 times already this season with the same quartet: Miriam Sheehan, Isa Adame, Julia Ullman, and Caroline Bench, 3 of whom are new to the team this year. And they've kind of turned this event into, you have to check what they've done every single time they get in the water because they might have broken the program record again. The last time they took it down was at a January dual meet. So it just seems like this race exemplifies all the progress they've made this season. And I'm excited to see what they can do now that it's championship time.
Yeah. Speaking of Isa Adame, one race that I was really looking forward to was the women's 100 breast, where you have 5 women that have already been under a minute in the conference. Isa Adame is 3rd seed at 59.4. You have Jolie Cry of Cincinnati seated at number 1. But you have Cincinnati, Houston, ASU, and TCU, and Arizona, and BYU on the top 7. So there's a lot of versatility. I feel like breaststroke can sometimes, not in the case of men's Big Tens, but sometimes be an equalizer in terms of, teams having versatility. I know at NCAAs, we that is one event where you can definitely see some mid-major schools being represented, not only in prelims, but in finals, just because it doesn't necessarily take a lot of program depth or getting big talent. I think breaststroke is something that you can certainly develop rather than recruit. And so we always kind of see some outliers or some schools we're not used to seeing in this event. And I feel like this is a perfect example of that, where we have 6 different schools for the top 7 athletes. So I think that will be a really fun race to watch. And hopefully we get some diversity in that final in terms of different programs being represented. Brendan, any event highlights for you? I guess on the women's side for Big 12s.
On the women's side, I mean, I think this is going to be an Arizona State Invitational, much like Big 12s used to be the Texas Invitational. But if we're looking for events where other schools in the conference can really step up and shine through, I think the women's 100 backstroke, where Lottie Cullen is currently seated with a top time of 51.1. That's an elite time. That's knocking on the door of scoring in NCAAs. She swims for the University of Houston. I'm really looking forward to seeing what she can do in terms of, I think there are 6 other Sun Devils in the top 10 of the women's 100 backstroke. So it's always cool. I remember last year we talked about Indiana breaststroke. Mariana Lazzarini of Penn State won the men's 100 breaststroke, and it was an incredible sight. Obviously, we were bummed that we didn't win an event at Big Tens, but seeing the Penn State reaction of a team that isn't quite in the mix for the team title, they still have elite swimmers on their team that can step up and win an event at a conference championship. That's really a cool sight to see.
Yeah, and I think on that note, I think one thing that will be cool about this conference championships, specifically when you're looking at Power 4 conferences, is that a lot of these schools and a lot of these athletes, this will be their last meet of the season, or this will be their focus meet of the season. And so I think not only will you see some really great times and probably some significant time drops, but I think if you're at the meet or watching the meet, there will probably be a lot of energy there, because there will be full teams there, and people will be investing a little bit more than maybe some of the other conference championships, where they want to swim fast, they want to get points, but they know that they also have NCAAs coming up around the corner. Sophie, going to throw this back to you. Any other events you're looking forward to, maybe on the men's side for Big 12s?
On the men's side, it kind of feels like the same question that exists at the Big Ten. What are you looking to see? Like, are you looking to see a really exciting throwdown between a ton of Sun Devil swimmers? Then, like, the 50 free is for you, right? You've got Johnny Kulo, Ilya Karun, and Tommy Palmer. Karun and Palmer certainly have swum lifetime bests already this season. I know Palmer broke 19 seconds for the first time this year. So that'll be an exciting race to watch. If you want something in terms of, a little bit more variety in the caps that are represented in the finals, the one I'm looking forward to is the 200 free. Patrick Salmon is from ASU is still the top seed, but then you've got Arizona's Ralph Delyden, Luke Minas, and Johnny Kulo are all right there as well. So that should be another exciting race where it's not just, which Sun Devil is going to win this. There's some variety going on as well.
Yeah, I think events with variety on the men's side might be a little scarce at this meet. Like Brendan mentioned, this is going to be an ASU meet, I think, from start to finish. However, I'm also looking at the men's 200 back, where the top 4 swimmers in the conference right now are all represent different programs. You've got Hunter Gubino of Cincinnati at the top at 140.4, which Cincinnati has something going for them in the men's 200 back. I feel like they've had 1 or 2 other NCAA qualifiers, if not scorers, coming out of their program. I know one of them was the guy, and I forget his name, which is embarrassing because I did an interview with him, but he was a college club swimmer who walked on at Cincinnati after 1 or 2 years of college, and then ended up making NCAAs in the 200 backstroke. He was 141 or 140. So whatever Cincinnati's doing, they know what they're doing in this event. But then you have Will Myers from Arizona, 141.1. Quinlan Gold of ASU, 141.7, and Brandon Miller of of Utah, at 142.1. So there's some really good depth in there. The next 3 seeds are Sun Devils, but then you've got a couple Horned Frogs from TCU in the top 10. And so I think we're going to have some races again where we get some a mix of schools in the final, and especially that men's tuner back. Like, we're going to see at least a few of those guys swim this at NCAAs as well. Brendan, any men's event you're excited for this Big 12 championships?
Yeah, kind of what Sophie said, where it depends on what you're looking for. If you want the flashy big names are going to be huge impact players at NCAAs next month. Anything that Ilya Karun is going to swim, how he responds to Luca breaking the all-time record in the 200 fly, that would be, if he swims the 200 fly at a conference, is he going to try and break the 137 barrier or maybe just better his best time? But if you're looking for a great race with maybe not a favorite to win, I think the 200 IM is going to be a great race. They're looking at it right now. There isn't someone that super stands out, but the top 8 are pretty close together. And I'm just looking forward to, if you want a close race, I think that's going to be one of the closest of the meet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So again, maybe not all of them are close races. Maybe not all of them are a lot of races with the different schools, but we will have some of them at this Big 12 championships. One guy who you guys have mentioned a little bit, Tommy Palmer, I think it's been great to see his trajectory, especially in this conference, because he swam at Arizona for, I think, 3 seasons, really developed there as a top tier sprinter. And then this year made the move to Arizona State, where he has continued to develop, broke 19 seconds for the first time in the 50 free this season. I think he's knocking on the door or broke 42 seconds for the first time as well in the 100 free. So it seems like he's doing really well. But to get to see him be on both sides of that rivalry, I'm sure it's a really cool experience for him. So nice to see that he has developed well at both programs. And with that, I mean, I think that's the Big 12 championships. You guys have anything else to add or any other excitements about that meet before we move on to sink or swim? All right, let's do it. Sink or swim. We've just got a few. We discussed this before, and I think I know everyone's answer, but as a formality, first up on sink or swim, the Indiana women will repeat as Big 10 team champions this year. Brendan?
Swim.
Easy. Sophie?
Yeah, I'll swim it too. Maybe a less biased answer, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a hard one. I feel like we've covered it. So I think that's 3 for 3 swims. I think the Indiana women have looked good this year. It will be a great team race, but I'm not going to call an upset just yet. Next, we'll get into this one a little more. IU men will sweep the relays at the men's Big 10 championships. Sophie, I'm gonna go first to you.
The only question mark is the 200 free relay, I think, for me. That's the only one I believe where they don't have the fastest time in the conference this season. I think it's Michigan first, with a 116 flat, and then Indiana just behind 116.2. Sure, why not? Swim. No harm. Yeah, they'll sweep.
Brendan?
I want to say swim. Obviously, I'll be pulling for them to swim. Having been on the team, there's just something about winning all 5 relays at that meet that is extraordinarily difficult. I think they absolutely have the talent to do it this year. But we've seen earlier in the season a few kind of wonky relay DQs for the Indiana men. I'm hoping that all of that has been figured out before championship season. I'm going to say swim.
Oddly enough, I'm going to sink it for the same reason you just, and use your rationale, Brendan. I think it's hard to go into a meet, especially where there certainly will be some close races, and just sweep the relays. If they were in the Big 12, it'd be well, not with ASU, but it's like if this was a conference meet that wasn't as competitive, sure. But I think, especially with the energy that some teams will bring, it's hard to sustain that kind of energy and excitement for 5 different team events. And I think they could do it. I think, as you said, they have the talent to do it. But I'm going to be a little pessimistic here and say, a Michigan comes in and wins one, or another team comes in and wins one, because in that scenario, again, that team is just bringing a different energy in one event versus Indiana bringing a lot of energy in 5 events. So I think Indiana. Go
I'm
ahead.
curious to see Wisconsin defending Big Ten champs in the 200 free relay. I'm curious to see how they handle expectations as the defending champs.
Yeah, I think Indiana wins the meet. I think they win a lot of relays, but I think one team will have a surprise swim in one relay and prevent IU from getting the sweep. And then finally, this is our last one is an over under. This number came out of nowhere. I don't even really know what the conference records are for the Big 12. I know they have to be pretty good because Texas is pretty good, and also Texas A&M, when they were in the conference, at least for the women, were pretty good. So take it as you will. Give me a rationale. No wrong answers. Over under 5.5 meet records will go down at the Big 12 championships. This is for men and women. So maybe this number is really low. Maybe it's really high. I don't know. Brendan, what do you think?
I'm going to say over. I'm going to say most of those records will be relay records. I think the ASU, specifically the men's relays, but the women's relays, like Sophie said, have been strong as well. I think that number is going to be eclipsed, throwing a few individual events here and there, but I think most of them are going to be relay records that will be broken.
Sophie?
Yeah, I agree. I think that this would be a different conversation if we were talking about 5, the line for just the men or the women, but men and women together. I think that it is going to turn out to be a little bit of a low bar for them to clear, especially once the ASU relays kind of start rolling at this meet.
It's a good point. I'll go over as well. I mean, same reasons. I don't think this is a particularly hard one, but it helps when ASU is essentially tapered for every meet, right? And they're not, but they swim like it. They swim so fast, and it seems like they have found a formula to swim really, really fast at every single meet. And especially under Eddie Reese, the Texas Longhorns would swim fast at this meet, specifically on the men's side, but not super fast. And they had very little reason to as well. I think the people that were swimming their fastest at this meet were trying to qualify for NCAAs rather than score big points for the team. So yeah, I'm going over as well. I think those relays, specifically on the ASU side, at least 6 of 10 we see go down in terms of meet records for Big 12s. So that is our official preview for the Big 10 and Big 12 conference championships. Stay tuned. We'll have plenty more swimming content coming at you. But until then, we will see you next time.